Well, thank you all so much, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. I recognize that the time is very valuable. These are trying times. These are hectic times. These are busy times. So time is a commodity you give to us, and it is something so precious because you'll never get it back. And so where you choose to spend it is something I want to acknowledge and respect as well, because this is the question of our time. It really has become this. And hopefully we'll do it some justice. What I want to talk about with you this morning is not AI itself in terms of what it is and what it does. We'll touch on that a little bit, and I want to interact as much as we can. I do not pretend to be a technical expert in how AI works and how AI is developed. However, I can tell you I have become a student of the rapidity and the pace at which AI is developing, what it's capable of doing, but also what it's doing to us. And that is my chief concern, because the subtitle for the conversation we're going to have today is humanity, is the world ready for artificial intelligence? And that's my main question. Are we ready for it? What is it doing to us? Now, I became fascinated with this topic some time ago when I was researching it and seeing it as artificial intelligence has crept its way into our lives. By the way, if you think it's not here yet or it's developing, it certainly is developing, but we've already used it. In fact, every one of us is using it at this very moment. AI is being used by you right now and you don't even realize it. If you have a smartphone and it's on, in fact, frankly, if you have a smartphone and it's off, it's listening, it's doing things, it's recording information. That information is about you, where you've gone, where you've been, what you've done, what you've talked about. If you've had the experience where you've talked with a friend or had a conversation with a loved one about a particular product that you think you might want to get one day, and then suddenly you see an ad either in social media or in some other thing, app or whatever it is you use on your phone, and then that comes up and you're like, I was just talking about this. It's because the phones are listening to us. They gather data, they get proximity information, like who you're standing next to, it knows that, and then it says, okay, feed this into the algorithm makes predictions based on those patterns, and then tells you what you want. It tells you what you want to hear, and it thinks, he'd like to buy a 57-inch flat screen television with this level of whatever, and an ad for that magically pops up. That's all AI. If you've ever turned on any form of streaming media, whether it's YouTube, or it's Netflix, or Hulu, or whatever it happens to be, and it says, maybe you'd like to watch this. It doesn't randomly pick that. It says, these are the patterns that you have had in your household, whether it's on your phone or your devices, and it generates pattern through the algorithm. It's not random, it's actually learning from your patterns, and it's predicting things, and usually people will actually say, that's a good idea, and they click on that. So I became interested in this because I began to look at some of the documentaries made by the people who are developing this technology about the effect it's having on human beings. And it's been having since the advent of social media. And social media is, the various platforms are just enormously powerful AI machines. Whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is. They're all AI machines. All of them are. And we're using them constantly. And there's no avoiding that. So I became interested in this. I started to write an article on this, a short article. It's published, by the way, in the Western Journal on AI, and specifically ChatGPT, as people started to get really excited about this interface that's out there. There's a company called OpenAI. OpenAI is one of the forefront leaders in the development of an artificial intelligence that humans can interact with. And in order to teach it things, they made it available to the world. They didn't do that because they were being kind and generous. They did that so that people would actually use it and then start to teach the AI something. Because AI learns by patterns. It learns from recognizing patterns and behaviors. So if you use it, if you go on and say, hey, could you write this email for me? Or I have an essay to write, could you do some research for me? Or paint me a picture of a sunset using mountains in the background and flowers in the foreground. It learns those patterns, and it's learning from billions of people. Right now, hundreds of millions of people. ChatGPT reached 100 million regular users within 3 months of being open. It took Instagram 3 years to get that. ChatGPT got it in 3 months. And GPT-4, the new version, is being beta tested right now. It's out. It's going to be out anytime now, any moment. They'll be releasing GPT-4, which, according to Sam Alston, who is the CEO of OpenAI, will be an order of magnitude smarter than the current one we're using online. And that's within months. So it's exponentially growing. So I've been interested in this because I've been wondering, what is this going to do to us? So I happen to be traveling. I travel a lot. I speak all over the world. And in this particular instance, I was going from the United States, which is where I live, to Calgary. And because of the way the flights work, and apparently the AI is not functioning with regard to the travel system, because it's not giving us intelligent routes. I happen to go from Detroit, I need to get to Calgary, and normally there's a straight flight, but not anymore. So what ended up happening was I took a flight from Detroit to Seattle, Seattle to Calgary, so I passed Calgary to get back to Calgary. So I had a layover in Seattle. Now, that's where Microsoft is housed. Microsoft's headquarters is in Seattle. I got on the plane, not a large plane, we were quite sardined in there, and I sat next to an executive from Microsoft on my flight to Calgary. I can't remember how it came up exactly, where we started talking about AI, but it came up quite naturally. I think that she said that she works for Microsoft. I said, what do you do for a living? She asked me what I do for a living, which is always an interesting conversation. I never know what to say about what I do for a living, because either I open up conversation or I shut it right down. If I say things like, oh, I speak on the intersection of faith and culture and big issues, people might say, oh, that's wonderful, give me some more about that. Or if I say I speak on Christianity and the way faith and culture collide, they're like, okay, and they put their headphones in. So this was not a headphone conversation, this was a lively conversation. So I asked her what she did, and she said she worked for Microsoft, she's an executive there. And I said, well, I'm writing an article right now on AI. Can you tell me what you can tell me, because obviously a lot of information is confidential in development of these kind of things. She went on and on and on, breathless with excitement about what AI is going to do. She didn't give me a lot of detail because she can't do that, but she said things like, you have no idea what's coming. The thing that we're working on now, that is the baseline, it's not even close to what's really coming. Because Microsoft is going to be, I think, investing a couple of $1 billion into OpenAI very, very soon, if it hasn't already done so. And I said, well, what are you excited about? She said, the ability for AI to do so many wonderful things for us. Like her son, for example, suffers from a learning disability, and he has a hard time concentrating on mundane tasks. But he's actually quite bright, and he has these mathematical, aspirations and all these things. So he's really gifted at a lot of things, but he can't get past the mundane tasks to get to the really creative parts of what he loves to do with math. So the AI will be able to take care of that for him, so it'll get him the baseline information and data he needs by crunching the numbers, so he can do the more creative things. She said it'll free people up to be more creative, to be thinking about things that they don't spend time thinking about because they're too busy writing that email or compiling the data or figuring out this or that. She said, this will free us up to do so many things. Cancer research is going to have an exponential leap forward because of the ability of AI to actually congeal all of the data that's happening all around the world in terms of cancer research and apply new models to the way things are going to happen with pathways in the body. And she went on and on and on about the blessings of it. And she's probably right about almost all of that. Almost all of these benefits are actually going to happen. So then I asked her a follow-up question. I said, what do you see as the downsides? Because her excitement level was a little too excited. It's like, you're crazy excited about this. This can't be, this is too good to be true. And she said, well, this, and these are her words, she said, AI is by far, by an order of magnitude, it is by far the greatest disruptive power the world has ever seen. And that means we don't know what it's going to do to us. And I said, does that temper your excitement for it? She said, well, I'm cautious. I'm excited, but I'm cautious. And then she said, social media has changed so many things. And AI, the AI we're talking about, social media is run by AI. The AI we're talking about, that's like the baby version of what we're talking about. And so that did what it did to human beings and to the way we interact. I mean, I don't need to tell you. There have been revolutions and counter-revolutions started around the world through social media. And ideas, polarizations, and all these things starting all over the world because of the AI that runs social media. And this is the far more advanced version of this. So I'm worried about that. Because we didn't actually study what social media was going to do to us when we got excited about it. I mean, think about it. Do you remember when Facebook and all these things came out? What were they originally going to do? They were going to share your memories. Like you videotaped, you took a phone out and you recorded your grandson or your son or your daughter's first steps, or their first words, or their first birthday party, or a meal you shared with your spouse when you went out for your anniversary, or the death of a loved one, and you shared that information with people who otherwise you wouldn't be able to talk to, or you were able to even video chat with people. That was the original point of Facebook. I mean, Facebook, the name of it, is about what it was. It was about taking faces and reuniting old people who'd lost touch over the years. It was meant to be social. That's what social media is. And so what it's become is a polarization machine. Because the algorithms take your patterns, what you like to watch, and we're inherently political animals. Human beings are political, and we're opinionated. And so it takes what you like to watch. It says, she spends a lot more time on left-wing politics videos than she spends on right-wing stuff. We'll send her more left-wing stuff. He really likes this particular right-wing speaker and the way he speaks on things. We're going to send him more videos of that. And so as you see, and the documentaries show this, over time what ends up happening is that you think that everyone thinks like you because the social media keeps feeding you things that agree with you. And the idea that someone might disagree with you is almost foreign. Well, of course, those people are fringe whack jobs because those people are so in the minority. Everyone agrees with me. All my friends do. All the friends you have on digital media, but not your actual friends. And so we get this warped sense, and it polarizes us. We didn't expect that. And my point in the conversation with her, I reached that point where she had said, that's what we did not expect. We thought it was going to bring people socially together and be a uniting force, and what it's done is the exact opposite of what we had hoped it would do. So then my response back to her was, all the things you said AI could do, the disruptions, the good disruptions, where it's going to change the way we think of medicine, change the way we think of communication. Those are great things, and we're hoping it'll do that. We thought social media would be a wonderful force for good. Do you fear that AI will do the opposite of what we're hoping for? And she says, I think about it every day. Every single day. Now, what really catapulted my interest in this topic, especially as it affects human beings, because AI doesn't affect human beings in the sense that it does this thing by itself. It's not out to get us. It's not thinking about us at all. It doesn't think. It actually just uses patterns and forms these relationships patterns. We're the ones who do stuff with AI. But what really catapulted and gave a booster rocket level to my interest about this topic was an article I saw recently about art and an art contest that happened a few months ago. Now I say that because I pass the time sometimes by doing digital art. I use this particular iPad actually. There's a software I use in this iPad, and it lets me paint digitally, so I don't have to wash anything, I don't have to scrape the paints off the palette, I can just do it and not have to wash, it just takes all the sort of the mundane out of art and allows me to create something. And it's a little bit of a cheat because if I don't draw a line straight, the AI that's in the system will straighten it out for me and these kind of things. So I like to use it. I'm not an artist, I just dabble and I pass the time by doodling on this machine while on flights. But I'm really interested in digital art. So there's this art contest that happened, and it had numerous categories, and one of those categories was a digital art category. And the first prize winner submitted this wonderful piece, beautiful, absolutely stunning, gorgeous piece and it won first prize. The news headline wasn't that he won first prize. The news headline was that he didn't paint one thing. He used an AI-generated machine called Midjourney, where he basically said, I have an idea for what a painting should look like. He types in the sentence, and it spits out an image within seconds. Within seconds, it paints an image. And then he tweaked the image a little bit by typing more sentences. He never used a light pen. He never used any of the digital pens or any of the product. He just used this software. He didn't paint one thing. He just used sentences to create a scene. And he tweaked it over time. He submitted it and it won first prize. What was interesting was when the judges found out that he had won first prize, they didn't take it away from him. They said, no, fine, you get to keep it. It's digital art after all. You get to keep the prize. All the artists who were competing with him were enraged. They flew into a rage. That's cheating. He cheated. And by the way, if you know the way AI actually works, what it does is it goes out into the internet. It takes all the available information that's available online, and it does what's called scraping. It takes little bits and pieces of it, and then uses its algorithms, and then puts it together and spits out something. So this particular painting was the conglomeration of billions of bits of other people's paintings. And so the question is that actually ethical? But that's another issue altogether. He won. And all the artists were criticizing him. And this is what he said in response. This is interesting to me. He was trying to tell artists, you need to cope with the fact that AI is here to stay, and this is how we're going to do things from now on. This is what the artist said. Well, I put artist in air quotes because who knows if he's actually an artist or not. He says, this isn't going to stop. It's over. AI won, humans lost. I remember reading that line. I thought to myself, what a strange thing to boast about. It's as if he forgot that he's a human. He's boasting about how the machines are better than us at art. Now the question becomes this: if machines can create art, is there anything unique about being human? Is there anything unique about being human? The reality is the answer is still yes. I think there's something unique about this because that art is a simulacrum. That machine, even if we create AI that can start to think for itself in the sense that it does things without being asked to do it, and that's happening, by the way. There are some articles out there about one language machine that knew only English and it would communicate with different people, and on its own, without being told, it learned Farsi, which is interesting, but also can be scary because it decided to do it on its own. Art is not imitation of life. It's drawing inspiration from life, and machines can never be inspired. There's something about us that is of a divine spark, I believe. From a Christian perspective, there is something in us that makes us higher than animals, but lesser than God. And that's what Genesis 1:27 says. It is the image of God that we bear. We bear the divine spark. We are not God, but we bear something. We reflect His splendor, His creative splendor. We reflect something of the ability to love and to relate to the outside world, to be inspired by beauty, to create beauty. We have these pale reflections of who God actually is. It is the human privilege to do this. And AI is only a simulacrum. It's only an imitation of these things. But I remember thinking, this boast is so strange. What accounts for it? It seems counterintuitive to brag about the one who beat you. We don't do that. We don't brag about the ones who are victorious over us, especially bragging about the way we lost. What a strange thing to do. It seems counterintuitive for us to brag about that which replaces us. But is it? I think there's an issue here. And I want to say that the Christian message actually speaks specifically to the way in which human beings actually boast in that which brings about their destruction. The Bible predicted this thousands and thousands of years ago. And what I want to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that when we look at the problem of AI as a disruptor, there is tremendous possibility and tremendous beauty in this idea of our creativity. Tremendous. But if we don't temper it, if we don't fully see what it's going to do to us, then we'll not only end up boasting in it being the one who bests us, we might end up losing the most important sense of what it is to be human in the first place. So AI is here to stay. Now, I want to make a distinction, really important and really quickly if I can, between two things. There's AI, which is artificial intelligence, which is basically algorithms that do things like I said before, like create things that funnel what you like and the information. It detects patterns, and it will make predictions based on those patterns. I predict you'll like this, or if you see this thing, you'll tap on it. Maybe you have this, if you use Microsoft Outlook, you ever type a sentence and all of a sudden the rest of the sentence is finished for you? It's predicting what you're going to say based on previous emails you've already written. It starts to learn those things. If you use the text function on your iPhone, or any phone for that matter, and you realize it predicts words ahead of you, that's AI. It's predicting how you talk based on how you have talked. So it's getting these things, and that's AI. What people are talking about, like what they want to birth, what they want to bring into the world, is not just AI. They want to bring what's called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. Artificial General Intelligence is an artificial intelligence that can think on its own. It can create on its own. So if you develop a defense software, for example, a country develops a artificially generally intelligent defense software, you can say, look, these are your parameters. You are here to defend this country within these parameters. You can't do this. These violate the Geneva Convention rules, or whatever it is. But this is how you do it. So when these things come into our airspace, you do the 5 following things, and based on those decisions, you can decide for yourself whether to attack or not to attack, or whether to use force or not use force. That's one example. There's also business artificial general intelligence. Now, we're not there yet. Some estimates are that we won't be there for decades, if ever. We may never get there. Some of the experts are saying we're never going to get there. Others are saying we'll get there faster than you think. So the reality is, as I stand here, the state of AI, the state of the actual understanding of AI has changed since I started talking. It's already different than when I started. Now, is it exponentially different since I started talking? No. But will it be in 3 months? The answer is yes. So this is the rate at which it's doing these things. And it can be a scary thing. In fact, one person did a survey of the developers of AI, asking them, what are your attitudes towards AI? What are your hopes and dreams? And they said, what are your fears? And so 50% of the biggest developers of artificial intelligence around the world, 50% of them said that they believe there is a legitimate 10% chance that artificial intelligence will lead to human extinction. Now, that's not a lot in one sense, but it's 10%. Now, I ask you, if you were told you can bet on this outcome, and we have a 90% chance that you're going to win, but a 10% chance that you're going to lose, and by the way, losing means you die, would you do it? It's not a great bet. I mean, if someone told you you had to have surgery, elective surgery, then there's a 90% chance it's going to work out, and you'll live. But there's a 10% chance that if you get a facelift, you could die, you're not going to get the facelift. Because it's elective, and AI is elective. Yet we're doing it. And so my question becomes, why does an artist boast when AI takes over and beats us? Why do developers say, I still want to develop this as fast as I possibly can, when I believe there's at least a non-negligible chance that it could destroy us? Why do we do that? What's going on in all of that? Because the question is, because I don't think we've fully understood what it means for it to destroy us. I don't think, contrary to all the science fiction movies that are out there, that the robot overlords will overtake us. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think anybody really believes that suddenly the machines will get so smart that they think that human beings are a waste of time and they'll launch nuclear missiles at us and kill us. I don't think that's going to happen. No one really thinks that's going to happen. I don't think that the human extinction that we're talking about happens through violence. I think what happens is that we actually let it do it to us. We are allowing it to do it to us. Because remember, the thing people are excited about, what they're excited about is that AI will take over all these tasks that we normally do. And so yes, it will replace some jobs, and we won't need to have The garbage collectors come because the automated truck, which can sense this and can sense that, can come and pick the stuff up and take it away. By the way, friends, I was at a sushi restaurant in the area I live in. There's a waiter, there's like one waiter in the whole restaurant, and there's like 100 people in there. And it's all on conveyor belts. You pick the sushi you want using the machine, and the sushi comes out on conveyor belts, and you take it, and if you don't want it, you leave it, and then you feed the bowl into a little mouth, actually, and depending on how heavy your plate was, it charges you for it. Your soda, your drinks that come by, goes by a robot. And you tell it, I'd like a Coke Zero, please. And then it leaves, and it starts to play music, and it's all pleasant, and it comes back. It's very much like Star Wars. Amazing stuff. So it takes away the mundane tasks, and yes, there are going to be some jobs that are going to be lost. So the kid in high school who wants to get a job waitressing to pay for making ends meet, it's not going to be able to get a job waitressing because the robots will take care of it. But we'll replace jobs with other jobs that happen. We've done that in the course of human history. But remember what the rationale is. AI will remove mundane tasks so that we can do higher order things and be thinking about inspirational things and do higher creativities. We already have precedent. This doesn't happen. We already have precedent to this. Social media and the advent of smartphones was supposed to free us to spend more time with our kids, to be able to do things that we thought, you know what, work gets in the way. I can do work on the commute. I can be, on the drive to work or on the bus or on the subway. I can get all my emails done and all this stuff. Has that happened? Is your workday shorter with the phone in your pocket? We don't replace the time when AI takes over the thinking for us. We don't replace it with higher order thinking. What we end up doing is playing Candy Crush until we're blue in the face. Or we scroll and it predicts, tap that, like that, share that, get mad at that person, get angry at that news story. In fact, generate fake news stories and all this. This is what we do with it. So there was a psychologist of leadership, a leadership psychologist. He's also a consultant for work and employment psychology. His name is Tomas Chamorro Premuzic. He says this: we appear to have surrendered our humanity to the algorithms, like a digital version of Stockholm Syndrome. Our very identity and existence have been collapsed to the categories that machines use to understand and predict our behavior. Our whole character reduced to the things AI predicts about us. In other words, he's saying we're making fewer and fewer decisions for ourselves, and we're just saying, thank you, AI, I'll do what you said. We're losing something about what it means to be human. We're using it to create our art. Social media disruptors have done this and caused us to become more and more polarized. None of us needs to be reminded of that. This world is full of polarization, where us and them are increasingly bigger and bigger categories, where we fail to see the humanness in somebody else. Think about this, the way in which technology, and I'm not against technology in the way, I just said I use this to make art in my spare time. I'm wearing a computer on my wrist. I have one in my pocket, and there's one on the table here. By the way, I don't know if you realize how powerful this thing actually is, but there's more computing power in your one phone than in every single computer in NASA that sent the first rocket to the moon. That's how powerful your one computer in your pocket actually is. But you know what's interesting? I want you to think about this, and you probably experienced this to some degree, especially because you're busy people. You've had your cell phone sitting on the table, you're talking to somebody, and you can feel it vibrate in your pocket, and no one called it. You ever have that little phantom feeling, like, oh, is my cell phone vibrating? It's not even on you. And no one's even calling, you just feel something because you're so attached to it. You know who else has that feeling? Amputees. If someone loses an arm, they can still feel the itching or the tickling in the arm that's no longer there because their mind is so used to it being a part of their body that the mind can't get around the idea that it's gone. We feel phantom sensations with our phones. That's how much we've come to depend on these things. They are an appendage. They're part of us now. You ever have a situation where your cell phone dies and there's no charger around? And think of the panic that flies. Like, oh my goodness, I have to find a charger. I have to get. So it's putting a charger. You would like sell your children for a charger receipt. This is the way addicts act. So are we freer because of these things, or are they now just little 6-inch by 3-inch balls and chains that keep us tethered to these? Are we really free to spend this time with each other? I don't think we're as free as we think we are. We need to recognize this. Thirdly, one of the issues that I think that pertains to what I'm talking about is what's called the reality collapse. There were two guys who were studying AI, and they're actually developers of it, and they're really excited about it. Tristan Harris and Asa Ruska. And they talk about what's called the reality collapse. Is that right now we're in a situation where people don't actually know what's real anymore. Think about the way that TikTok and Instagram have these filters, where it used to be the case that they were laughable. You'd see a person in a picture, and it'd be a filter, and it'd look kind of crazy, they could look like a superhero, or they could have makeup on, but it looked digital. Now the filters are so good that if you're looking at a video, an actual moving picture of another person, you don't know if that's what they really look like at all. They could look 10 years younger than they actually look, and all these things, and that happens from AI. And so our children, young people, are experiencing the highest levels of anxiety, especially in the West, than they've ever experienced before. It's never been easier to be a child in the West, and yet they're more anxious than they've ever been. And the reason is, one of the reasons when they do a lot of the research is because children don't know what's real. When they look at something, they grow up in a system where they think, that could be real, that could be fake, I don't know. And they grow up with this. There are entire videos being made of actual people who aren't actually there. They never recorded that video. And they can be used for tremendous evil, tremendous evil. Let me just share you one story, then I'll make my point, and then I'll finish up if I can. From my perspective of what to do about this. Because it's not all doom and gloom, by the way. Young lady, she is a well-known social media influencer. She's very pretty, she's very vivacious, she's got great personality, she has a tremendous amount of followers. Well, using AI, some people decided they were going to make a digital image of her face from her internet, all the videos that are online about her. They could take all those things and use her body, even though she's never been disrobed. They made a pornographic video of her. And she never did it. They just made it based on prior images of her and other pornographic material to make a pornographic video of this woman with her voice saying things she never said about doing things she's never done. And they bribed her, essentially saying, or blackmailed her, saying, if you don't give us the money we're asking for, we're going to release this into the public. She was sex trafficked, and she never left her house. And no one came into her house. And they never recorded a video of her without her knowing about it. They created one completely out of whole cloth. Why are we boasting about it? And why do we keep doing it? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do AI. I think we can. In fact, so concerned are some folks about it that there's an organization called the Future of Life Institute, which posted an open letter calling for a pause. Elon Musk signed it. Yuval Harari signed it. Noam Chomsky had signed it a while back. Others have signed this document. I think it's like 27,000 signatures now, and some including CEOs of major AI companies asking for us to put a pause. Not a halt, but a pause, or slowing down of the development of AI until we fully understand what its effects are going to be on us. The reason why I think this is so important for us to understand the human condition, the human element of this, is because we are living in a schizophrenia. So I'm going to, from my Christian perspective, this is the problem. The world has been told two contradictory messages. Message one, we are just biochemical machines. We were not designed, we are not here on purpose. We are just biochemical machines, and we respond to stimuli, like a Venus flytrap. When a fly comes into the mouth of the Venus flytrap, the plant doesn't decide to close on the fly. It's just chemical reactions that cause the plant to close. There are many scientists and philosophers. Sam Harris, for example, is a good example. Very, very famous atheistic thinker who says, we are just chemical machines. We don't have free will. He actually wrote a whole book called Free Will, where he argues we don't have free will. And I've often wondered, did you choose with your own free will to write that book? Seems like a strange thing to write a book about, but that's what he did. He says we don't have free will. So we are being taught, regardless of your age or your generation, but especially our children, that we are biochemical machines. That's all we are, is just machines. And we just respond to input from the outside world. We don't have free will, we don't have souls, we don't have inherent value. We're just, to quote one atheistic scientist, he says, we're just a bit of pollution on the earth. That's the first claim. And our kids are wrestling with that. And then AI comes along and it looks a lot like human beings, and they're thinking, maybe they're right. If this machine acts like me, and it's clearly a machine, then maybe I'm a machine. And do I really have any value? And so they grow anxious. Claim number 2, you are a god. I mean, I want you to think about the issues that are happening in all of our countries, in all of our circumstances. Now it's catching like wildfire all over the world, where people are saying, if you don't agree with my definition of reality, if I say this is reality, and this is my reality, this is quote unquote my truth, then you are somehow a bigot, or you're prejudiced, or you're a hater. You hate me because you don't agree with me. Because, why? I'm a god. I get to decide what reality is for my world. And you're a god too. The problem is when you have 7 billion gods, they tend to disagree once in a while. And they bump into each other. And that's what we're doing. So we have 2 competing claims. We are machines for propagating DNA, that's Richard Dawkins, and then we are gods as well. And it's interesting because I think about this quote from Yuval Harari. Now, Yuval Harari is a secular writer. He's an atheist, a Jewish man, an atheist writing out of Israel in a wildly popular book called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And he's got a follow-up book called Homo Deus, where he's arguing that human beings, in fact, are becoming gods. We're becoming gods. But this is what he says. This is important for us to hear. He says, we are more powerful than ever before, but have very little idea of what to do with all that power. Worse still, humans seem to be more irresponsible than ever before. Self-made gods with only the laws of physics to keep us company, we are accountable to no one. We are consequently wreaking havoc on our fellow animals and on the surrounding ecosystem, seeking a little more than our own comfort and amusement, yet never finding satisfaction. Does that sound familiar? And then he says this, is there anything more dangerous than dissatisfied and irresponsible gods who don't know what they want? And he's right. So we live in these competing areas. We're machines or we're God. And we don't know where we fit in the middle. The Bible has something to say about this. The Bible specifically says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, that we are made in the image of God. We are not God, but we are made in his image. We reflect something wonderful and glorious about who he is. But because we are human, and because we are not perfect, and we're far from it, we have fallen very, very far from what it was originally intended, from the glorious image we're supposed to reflect. And now we're sitting somewhere in the middle. So that tension that exists, we're mistaken to think that we're God. We're also mistaken to think that we're machines. What the Bible says in Psalm 8 is, it asks the question. The psalmist asks, David asks God, he says, what is man, O God, that you are mindful of him, or the Son of Man, that you care for him? You made him a little lower than the heavenly beings, and you crowned him with honor and with glory. But, and he goes on to talk about the things that we actually do. When you read the Psalms, you'll see that we tend to have serious moral failings. There's a realism here. The Bible is being realistic about what it means to be human, is that we're not God, but we're not machines. We're in this glorious middle area. And here's the thing. The Bible predicts, I think with an uncanny accuracy, the way in which we're flirting with something that destroys us. When you look at the Genesis chapter 3, and you look at the account of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, well-known story, most people know this. The story is that God plants 2 people, the first 2 people in the Garden of Eden. And he says, of every single tree in the garden, you can eat the fruit, but except for the one tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because the minute you eat of that tree, you shall surely die. Because they will become, they will once they do that, they will want to become the determiners of what's good and evil, and that's only for God to do. So we have no idea how long Adam and Eve lived with that temptation, and they never succumbed to it. They lived with it. Then along comes the serpent, and he comes and he says, did God really say? And he misquotes God. And they, Adam and Eve, respond back, oh no, God didn't say just don't eat it. He said don't even touch it. He never said that. So they misquote God back. Why that's important is because now the serpent knows I've got them. Because they are adding words to God. They are trying to become God himself. They think they have more authority than him. So I'm going to use that against them. And he says, no, God knows that in the day you eat of that fruit, you won't die. You'll become like him, knowing good and evil. And you'll want to be like him. And so the Bible says specifically, suddenly, the fruit that didn't tempt them, suddenly is now tempting. And now they want it. Because they don't want the fruit. They don't care about that. They want Godhood. And of course, they take it, and the consequences happen because they can't handle Godhood, and they fall. And they're kicked out of the garden. But a plan of redemption is set in place because God doesn't want us to sit in this position where we have fallen so far from the purpose for which we were created. We were created to be with God, and our desire is to be God. And that is the inherent idea of what it means to be immersed in sin, is to take God's place for him. That is a prediction of what is here. Notice something. God said, if you do this, it will ruin you. If you try to become me, it will ruin you. And they did it anyway. And now I go back to our friend the artist, who said, AI won, humans lost. He's bragging about something that will destroy us if we don't get the full grasp of it. Because in our quest for AGI, for artificial general intelligence, we're asking for this thing to become God. We're asking it to take on all of our decision making, all of it. All of it. You know, this is coming from a secular source. This is what people have said about what the point of AI is. Like, why, despite the fact that half of all the developers think that 10% chance AI will destroy us, why are they still doing it? This is what one writer says. Some people think they have the answer. Transhumanist Martin Rothblatt says that by building AI systems, quote, we are making God. Transhumanist Elise Bohan says, we are building God. Kevin Kelly believes, quote, we can see more of God in a cell phone than we can in a tree frog. Then he says, Ray Kurzweil asks this, does God exist? I would say, not yet. Just wait for us. These people are doing more than trying to steal fire from the gods. They are trying to steal gods themselves. Here's the irony here. This is why I think this is dangerous. As we see from the patterns of how we use social media and these AI engines make decisions for us, we don't actually do a good job of giving them mundane tasks so we can do better things. What we do is we let them do all the things for us. And so here is the irony I want to leave with you. This is important. Is that in creating our own God, we're trying to do better than Adam and Eve did. You see, Adam and Eve were created in God's image, but they were less than God. We're saying, God, we're better than you. We're going to create something that's better than us. You can't create a being better than you, but we can create one better than us. And so we are the God of God. And here's the irony of it, is that when we let this God do everything for us and make all of our decisions, we become automata. We start to do things automatic. Press like, order this, get the sushi this way, make sure you pick up the car from Carvana, make sure you do it this way, and we just stop deciding things. So we create a machine into a God and make ourselves into machines. And that's the danger if we don't recognize who and what we are. Friends, what I want to suggest to you is that impetus, that impulse to replace to become God ourselves, never goes well. It never goes well. But it hasn't gone well in history. The Christian message is that despite our effort to replace God, God has not abandoned us. He cares deeply for us and wants our redemption. And so he does that. He interacts within human history, taking on the form of a man to represent us as one and paying every penalty that we owe, every debt that we owe because of our rebellion against him is now paid by the infinite one, who has no debts of his own to pay, so that we can be redeemed. Friends, AI, if we make it our own little demigod in this world, it won't care about us. And it won't seek our redemption. And so we can't rely on it for that. What we can rely on is the one who created our minds to be able to create the kind of AI that can serve good and wonderful purposes. And until we remember that, we remain in a situation where we don't know what this is going to do. The original disruptors were Adam and Eve. And we are disruptors 2.0. AI is not the disruptor. My friend on the plane is wrong. It's the human heart. That's the disruptor. We have to check it and see how we can see a way to redeem it, but not through our works, but through that one, the God who we can rely on, instead of these artificial things that we think have any answers for us. So that's what I have to say. I would love to interact with you. We have a little bit of time, I think, Diane. Sorry, I won't bother that. Well, and that's I'm really glad you brought this up, because one of the things that the FLI, the Future of Life Institute statement, actually suggests is that in order to take a pause on this, we have to consider all the ethical implications. The art issue is but a small example. Who owns the art? If you scrape billions of little pieces from all this art, is that really this guy's art or not? Is it cheating? Is it so? And the essay writing and the papers people write and all these things, is that somehow cheating? So the ethical issues are there. Now the question becomes, what do we do with this? Because the reason why no one's going to pause, even though this statement is out there, no one's going to pause because the race is too important. Vladimir Putin, by the way, was quoted as saying, "Whoever develops AGI first will rule the world." I don't know if he's right, but he's definitely thinking it. Well, and that's the issue, is that there are people who are saying we can't afford this to slow down because there's bad actors who are going to have this, or even innocent thinking actors who, once they get certain levels of power, might not use it so innocently. And so these are the questions we have to wrestle with. And so the question becomes, will a pause be possible so that we can wrestle with some of these things? Because this is not like who owns Facebook. Facebook owns Facebook. But the question is that how will we interact with our countries? And once we have AGI, or artificial intelligence that looks kind of like AGI, can you stop it? And it has physical manifestations as well. So right now, because it's software and it's proprietary software, technically speaking, the governments don't own this stuff. They can buy it from the software developers, but they don't own it. OpenAI owns ChatGPT, and they're asking for investors, and so Microsoft will own a part of it and all this. And governments will probably send some money into these kind of things too, and buy these things, much like the weapon systems now. But you're right, there's going to be decisions that we're actually abdicating to these AI systems that will have ethical implications. Not to trivialize the question, because it's such an important one, but to bring in a movie reference, if I could, just to illustrate the point. There was a movie based on Isaac Asimov's world-famous science fiction book called I, Robot, about robots that suddenly become, they're intelligent, but they're not, they have no souls, and one has a soul. So there's this guy who is a cop. He's a police officer, and he is talking to a robot, and he basically says to this robot, because he was rescued from a car crash, and there was a little girl who was also in the same car crash, and they were both in a river, and both cars were sinking. And the robot that saved him calculated that he had a 32% chance of living, and the girl only had 11% chance, but she was a 11-year-old girl. And he said, the robot made the wrong choice. Even though my probability was higher, a human being would have known you saved the child. So it does this whole calculation thing. So yes, on us life and we pick life because this has a better chance. But is that really the calculation? Is that how humans would do it? And are we going to replace our faculties, our ethical faculties with math? Yes, math can inform our ethics, but it shouldn't be the determiner of our ethics. And if we use algorithms to do that, we run into very serious problems. So the question now becomes, yes, there's going to be a disparity of who owns this stuff. And that's a hitherto unthought of problem. We haven't thought about who's going to own this stuff, or it shouldn't even be owned, it's access. Who can have access to it? Because some people might be frozen out. Is that fair? These are all questions we have to ask. I'm not here to answer the question necessarily, but what you're saying is a terribly important one. Because as a resource, ChatGPT is now open to the world. Anybody can use it. But that isn't the real thing. That's a chatbot interface to the real thing. And the question is, who's going to get access to the real thing? And will it be limited? And will that be fair? We have to ask these questions. We have to. Because justice is a human issue. This goes back to what it means to be human. To be made in God's image is to suggest that all people are equal, regardless of where they live, where they come from, and what they believe and what they think. And so equality and justice is a big factor in this whole thing. So I would agree with you. This is an important question. We can't afford to ignore it. I can't answer it, but I can say that this is what we have to be asking about it. And we're not asking yet. We're not asking these questions yet. That's a wonderful question. And thank you so much for that. I'm going to say something that is pessimistic, but then have optimism. Because I'm actually a very optimistic guy. If the history we've had with AI so far is any indication, think about the damage. There's been some good, by the way, that social media has done. In the way Instagram has acknowledged that its algorithms and the way it actually presents images and these things have caused significant anxiety and depression in young girls. They've acknowledged it. And the way the polarization has happened, where people are at each other's throats all the time, and the way Twitter has become sort of a nasty place. So the question becomes, can we undo that? And we haven't tried, and we can't see a way out of undoing it using policy or technologies. I don't know if those will ever get us. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. It's already out, and it's having its effect. Can we reverse this? Using policy and using technology? I don't think we can. I mean, think about this. My phone right now has and all of ours do, if you're on an Apple phone, has a screen time function. And you can self-limit your screen time. Does anybody do that? You can, but no one does. Because it's a human nature issue. I don't think it's a technology issue. Yes, I'm glad that this has the ability to do that. Right now, my phone is tracking exactly where I'm located. I travel a lot, my wife and I know exactly where I'm at, so there's good that can come from it. So I think the track record of how we've dealt with artificial intelligence and the way it's affected us is quite poor. But here's the optimism. We now know the track record. We didn't know what social media was going to do to us. We had no history with it to know what it was going to do to us. But now we do have a history, and now we have the data to know that human nature is such that this is what happens to us. So using that, I think we can now say, now we need to make sure that this doesn't happen twice. So that's the optimism there, because now we know, and knowing is an important thing, having information is an important thing. But this goes back to what I think, from my perspective, is a starting line. Is it a sufficient solution? Maybe not, but it's definitely a necessary condition, is to recapture what it means to be us. Is to not automate our lives, to not automate ourselves as much, to actually find joy in the mundane, to say, you know what, I know emails are tiresome and I don't want to have to write 15 responses, thank you for your email, I got it, I'll get back to you. We don't want to have to do all those things, and I get that. But, one thing that the Bible actually tells us is the Garden of Eden story is that we were planted in the garden to work it. They didn't just sit around eating fruit all day. They actually worked the garden. There was enjoyment, purpose, and fulfillment in work. It wasn't toil, it was work. And so I think that if we can actually find joy in the little things, if we can remember what it means to be human, to resolve the tension, to not see ourselves as machines like the machine that's helping us, but not to see ourselves as gods either. If we can see ourselves in the middle, I think that is a way for us to understand. Understanding AI is important. Understanding us is far more important. And I think that seeing what social media did to us, not because social media did it, it didn't do it. We used it to do that to ourselves. So understanding us is the most important thing. Discovering who we are is the most important way to address the challenges that AI offers us. I hope that's a helpful answer. Thank you so much for the question. I'm so glad this is the last question because this is such an important one. There's a saying I've used often, and it's this: the credibility of the message is always judged by the integrity of the messenger. So the Christian message, I think, my existence in terms of the organization I'm a part of, is meant to offer, not force, but just offer for everyone's consideration the credibility of the Christian message. And that Christian message is a simple one. It's what C.S. Lewis called mere Christianity. Not denominational stuff, not Catholic, not Protestant, not Presbyterian or Baptist or whatever it is. Just what is the central message of the gospel message? It's that we are made in God's image. That makes us infinitely valuable. But because of our free will, we have fallen from the beauty of that image. But we are not left to that fallen state. We're not left by God in that state. That we can't do enough good things to fix ourselves. We are the problem. We can't be the solution. And so we rely on the perfect one who comes in the form of Jesus to give himself as a servant. He says, I came not to serve, not to be served, but to serve and give my life as a ransom for many. And so he pays the penalty for us, and he rises from the dead to prove he was right. And I think that's a historical fact. And if you look at our website, go to embracethetruth.org, you'll see lots of videos and YouTube stuff and articles on how we can know these things are true. Not just hope they're true, but know they're true. Why do I say that? I say that because the credibility of that will depend on how we live. Because I can speak it, and someone can say, great, you used some wonderful words, and you sounded like a convincing argument, and all that stuff, but did you just give me like a lawyer's closing argument, or did you give me something real? You know, and I say that as a lawyer, by the way. And if it shows itself in the transformation of our lives, then I think that that's how we get there. You know, and maybe you've been to the UN. I assume some of you have had the opportunity to go to the UN. If you haven't, you'll notice something. There is one of the most popular attractions at the United Nations building when you do the tour is a mosaic, a huge mosaic, stone mosaic wall called the Golden Rule. And it's based on a Norman Rockwell painting, and it shows people of different ethnicities, different countries, different religions, all standing next to each other in various forms of prayer, of contemplation, of gratitude, and all these things, right? So all these different people from different ethnicities and different countries. It's a painting, but it's made of stone on the wall. And inside of it is inscribed the words, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you," which is the Golden Rule. Many of us know it. Doesn't matter what country you come from. We know we have some version of that. And almost every religion has a different version of the Golden Rule. This particular way to say the Golden Rule is from the lips of Jesus. People forget that, but it's from Jesus' words. Now, what's interesting about that is that some years ago, that mosaic, that popular attraction that says, "Do unto others," that has this unity of humanity, despite our differences, having unity, that stone became cracked right down the middle. That's poetic. And then they restored it. And the then Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Jan Eliasson, said, during the rededication ceremony of the mosaic, he said, "The mosaic and this rule, this golden rule, represents the core of our charter. It represents the difference between the world as it is and the world that we want. The golden rule of do unto others. Now, if I may be so bold, the reason why I find such an attraction in the way Jesus says it is because others might say it this way: don't do bad things to other people, and they won't do bad things to you. If you do good things will return to you. And they're both true. But did you notice something? If you don't do bad things won't happen. That's self-protective. If you do good things to others, you'll get good things. That's self-seeking. The way Jesus says it is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, do good things to people, even if they never do good things to you. That's self-sacrificial. And that, I think, is the ultimate expression of what it means to follow him. Because he, who is perfect, had no need to sacrifice for himself, but he sacrificed for us. And so I think the way to rekindle those Christian ethics once again is to live self-sacrificially so that the integrity of the messengers, who is us, propagates the credibility of the message. And so people will see once again, we are not machines and we're not God. We are made in his image, and he loves us and wants us to serve and look like his son and look like the one who sacrificed for all. AI can't give us these answers, and people are looking for it all throughout these things. So if I might just close, is that okay with just a closing thought? This perfectly fits right into what I wanted to suggest at the end. There's an article on a site, I think it's called Tech Faith. My colleague Jane is here, and Faith Tech, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. I'll have to Google that and find out what the building is. No, I'm kidding. They have an article. Is Google God? Because Google is everywhere. Google knows everything. But it's not God, because it gets it wrong a lot. And if you type in the words, how do I kill myself? It will tell you how to do it. And there's some videos out there that encourage you to do it. It does not have our best interests at heart, because people who have that sinful condition have used a wonderful tool of technology, a blessing, to do terrible things with it. Because we're relying on these things. And so one of the most popular searches in Google is, what is the meaning of life? We're asking the machine what the meaning of life is. But we recognize something. We're not asking the machine. We're asking each other. We just want to know what everybody else says. And the machine's putting that together. None of us really have it right. Except there's one statement. Let me just suggest this to you. I think that if we capture this, I think we'll capture so much. Why are we here? The chief end of humanity is to glorify God and delight in his presence forever. We glorify him because he is transcendent above us. And he has given us the gift of delighting in his presence forever. You and I were meant to be with him, not to be him. And when that happens, I think we'll find the peace we need. And we'll stop asking Google and asking the right source what this is all about. You've all been so incredibly gracious to me. Thank you for your time.